What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a vintage Kenner market update. Before I begin, let me say thank you to my Patreon supporters, specifically my latest Patreon supporter, Matthew Neef. I believe I'm pronouncing his name correct. Just became a Patreon supporter last night. It is 5:20 a.m. and I'm already up and putting together a vintage Kenner video for you guys. So thank you so much to all my Patreon supporters and welcome aboard, Matthew. I really appreciate the support. My trip got delayed, obviously, since I'm still pumping out videos. So I don't know when I'm going, but my trip did get delayed. So I put together a list or, a number of different items. I actually had a larger number of items, but I had so many tabs open on my internet browser that my computer kept crashing. So I kept opening stuff and it crashed twice. So I've narrowed it down a little bit, and I tried to include things for every budget. Okay, so I included some loose graded figures, I included some ungraded mint on cards, and I spanned the gamut from Empire Strikes Back all the way up to the Ewoks droids, Power of the Force, and I'm finishing off with some very rare mint on card, made in Mexico Lili Ledys, not the U.S. market Lili Ledys, the actual Mexican market Lili Ledys. So we'll show those towards the end, so stick around for those. But here are a number of different beautiful mint on cards that have sold over the last few days. This is a 21 back Empire Strikes Back Jawa. This one has, as you know by now, the secret Star Wars action figure offer. It's a transition card, so only 12 back. The first 12 figures were available on this card on the Empire Strikes Back. Now, I couldn't, I tried to kind of go through here for some of these ahead of time to kind of get a sense of grade, and I think this one's probably like a 75, maybe a 75 plus, but I think given the number, it's not like significant damage to the card back or the blister, but it's enough items that once you combine them all together, it's probably not going to hit an 80 grade. You got a crease above the hang tab there. You got some sticker residue to the right of the logo. You got some rippling going on with the blister. You've got a dent in the blister. You've got some edge wear, and you got a crease on the bottom right. So all of those factors combined probably puts this at like a 70 or 75 at best. And that's okay, though. I mean, it's a transition ESB card, and those tend to go for pretty big money. This one actually, relative to grade, this one sold for a lot more, I feel like, than some of the, there was one that sold at higher grade, and it sold for more money. But I think that the price difference, given the condition of this one versus the other one, this one seems to have gone for a little bit more money. So this one sold for $410, 32 bids, and this one just closed 2 days ago. So, these transition cards, no matter what the character, you're going to be paying up for them. I mean, they just weren't produced in a large enough quantity that, and there's so few characters available for them that you're going to have to pay quite a bit of money for them. And the same can be said true for a nice clean example of the of the 48 back with the Neon Numb offer on the Return of the Jedi card. Those are also transition cards, and those are a little bit more plentiful, obviously, given that there's 48 figures. But those do command big dollars, especially if they're clear blisters. Next up, we had a really beautiful item. This one was a 48 back. I assume the A back, since it doesn't have the Revenge sticker on there. But this is the Bespin security guard, and it looked awfully clean. You can tell very clearly it's got the waffle pattern. I love it when sellers do that, when they have just the right lighting, so you can see the waffle pattern on the seal for the blister, so you know it's legitimate. So it kind of puts to rest any concerns that this is a recard. But this was a really nice example, I feel like, and I think it would be easily an 80 or an 80 plus. I was watching that one pretty close, but you can see there's one little tiny stain right here where my cursor is. So yeah, I still think this is probably an 80 or an 80 plus grade overall. And that one sold for pretty big money too, $490, 23 bids. This one closed a few days back. I just haven't had a chance to get around to showing it yet. It closed about a week ago. But a very nice example of a 48A back Bespin security guard. Another beautiful ESB that just closed up. This one closed August 31st, so about another week ago. I'm sorry, guys, that I haven't, a lot of this data is a little bit older. I just haven't had time to kind of put together a nice video yet. But this one was a 32 back Leia Bespin, and it had kind of some sticker residue in the bottom right-hand corner by her left hand. and you know, a little bit of damage around the unpunched hanger tab, but you know, the weapon's still securely attached. Again, you can see the waffle pattern around the blister. So very, very nice. I'd say this is a low 80, maybe a 75 plus if somebody's being cranky at the grading company, but I think this is an 80. And that one sold for a lot of money, $645, 31 bids. But that's probably about, you know, for given the condition of this Leia Bespin, that's a pretty good number. That's a pretty good number. You know, 650 is kind of the magic number in my opinion for an ungraded Leia Bespin these days. So, you know, congrats to the buyer there, because I think that was pretty fair. Another one that was really nice. This one was a 45 bag Star Wars Display Arena Han Solo, and this one was very high grade, 85, straight 85s for all the sub scores on Han Solo. And wow, what an awesome item. It was punched, but man, you cannot do much better than that. Not too much better than that. And this one was listed for $12.49 or best offer, and it's within about an hour, because I saw this one when it first went up, and within an hour it had like 15 watchers. So I knew it was going to sell. It's just a matter of when and at what price. But I couldn't tell you what the final sales price was, but I think I received an offer at like $1,200 or thereabouts. So I'm assuming it sold right around there, and that's worth every penny in my opinion for that high of a grade for an ESB card back, straight 85s, and it's the first 12 figure on there. So that's worth every penny in my opinion for such a high grade item. Okay, I got a few Lukes I wanted to go through. The first one was a mint on card. This was an unpunched example of the Survival Kit 41 back A, I believe. And this one had the brown hair. I've got this exact same card back, except I've got the blonde hair version. But this one has the brown hair. And you can see here, even inside the blister, this is something we've talked about in past videos where like Leia's and Hoth Stormtroopers and regular Stormtroopers and Luke Bespin, you can see his torso has discolored inside the blister. It's faded, or you know, the plastic has degraded, and so the plastic for the torso is a different color than the limbs. So that happens, and it happens a lot. So it's not the end of the world. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't particularly care, but that kind of puts the figure score at like a 75. You might get an 80 if you're lucky there, but to me, that's a 75. Figure sub score, maybe an 80. I don't know, because it's probably an 85, right? If the torso was not discolored, the weapon is still in his hand. We've already talked about if the weapon falls out of the figure's hand, that drops the figure sub score. If this was being graded, for example, that drops the figure sub score to an 80. But let's say that the weapon had fallen out and the torso had been discolored, that puts it at a 75. So the fact that his torso is discolored slightly and his weapon is still in his hand, I think that the figure sub score might get an 80. I think it might get an 80. I'm not sure, but that would be my guess. But otherwise, it's an awesome item. I'm just nitpicking right now. Believe me, I would take this item in a heartbeat. It's gorgeous. Clear blister, and this one did not have any stamp on the bottom of the footer, which you often see for these ESB cards. You have a U or an S for the Unitoy or Smile Factory in Hong Kong, but that one had neither. Let's see if we can figure out which factory it was. It may not show it. It's made in Hong Kong, but I don't see the factory stamp for it. I'm not an expert on factory stamps here, but well, there it is. You can see right here. Right here, it's got an S. So this was made in the Smile Factory. So again, some of these. Some of these ESBs have the stamp on the footer. This one did not. So sometimes you'll see a big S, for example, usually stamped in blue on the bottom of the footer. But this one did not. But it's got the S code right there next to Greedo's blaster. So we know that this was made in the Smile Factory in Hong Kong. And there's also the Cater Factory and the Unitoys Factory. That's probably way more information that you want to know. This one sold for $760 plus $20 shipping, so a big number. And now I've got a few loose graded Lukes. First is an olive hair, dark pants Luke Skywalker. This was an 80. Now I wanted to do, I'm just showing this. The only reason I'm really showing this is because I got a comparison to show you. So this was an olive hair, dark pants. This is an OCO, very common on the Palatoy Tri-Logo cards. You can see it's got some more discoloration there, or on the limbs. So it's weird that the Luke Bespin had discoloration on the torso, But this Luke Farmboy has discoloration on the limbs. You can see on the arms, and then on the white part of his legs, it's got some yellowing going on. And it's still got an 80, so I think that probably supports that the Luke Bespin would get an 80. But anyway, that one sold for $230. It was an AFA 80, 24 bids, and that one sold on the 29th. And then we have another Farmboy. This was AFA 80, a bagged Farmboy. You can see that it's the mascara. I call it this one the mascara Luke. He's got the very heavy eye paint and eyebrow paint. This was a SWD baggie, really beautiful item. That one sold for $900, 17 bids. That one just closed 2 days ago. But this is not an early baggie, SWA or B baggie, but this is the D baggie. And you can see this is very clearly got the mascara eyeshadow Luke going on there. So, but an awesome item, AFA 80 archival case, and it sold for big money as I expected it would be. Another Luke, and I'm curious of what people who are Luke Jedi experts, maybe Scott T, maybe that one time on YouTube. You guys maybe know more than I do, but this was a green saber molded face Luke, Taiwan. So it had the correct COO to be a molded face Luke. All molded face Luke Jedis, to my knowledge, are Taiwan COOs, countries of origin. And it certainly looks like a molded face Luke. But I'm curious, for those experts out there, like Scott and that one time, who's a YouTube channel, what did you guys think of this price? To me, this price seemed low. It sold for $282 on 35 bids, free shipping. And I'm curious as to whether it's because the accessories were incorrect. So it's just a question for you guys out there as to whether it had the incorrect saber or incorrect mold blaster, where they mix the factories up. So that if that happens, sometimes the winning bid for the more discerning collectors, it won't be as high. And so I'm curious, because to me, usually a molded face Luke sells for $500 plus. But maybe I'm wrong there. So I'd just be curious as to if anyone is an expert out there on these accessories, because AFA and CAS and UKG are known to mix the incorrect factory accessories, especially for Luke Jedi. It happens quite a bit. So I'd just be curious to know. Now here's one that Chris W won. All right. And he asked me to cover this, and I had to cover it because he's right. Now this one was an AFA 80, no COO Luke Bespin, but this one is the olive hair. It's labeled as the olive hair Luke. So I call this one more like the mustard hair Luke. But what's unique about this is that it scored an 80 with AFA. And me personally, I have never seen, in the last few years at least, an AFA 80 mustard hair Luke. The mustard hair Luke is known to have torso discoloration, and this one's no exception. You can see that the torso on this one has darkened a little bit versus the limbs. But it's very, very rare. Usually the olive-haired Lukes are 75s and 70s, AFA 70s and 75s for loose graded. Just because, for whatever reason, this particular mold, wherever it was made, I assume overseas somewhere, like it's a Meccano or something, I don't know. But this one always discolors. The torso always discolors, and you can never get anything higher than a 75. Well, this one scored an 80. And this one sold for $219.50. I thought that was a fantastic deal. Chris W was the buyer for this one, and it's got that very pronounced mustard-haired color to his hair, and that's different than like the Hong Kongs or the China raised bar that have, or the blank raised bar, excuse me, that have the true brown hair. So that was a great deal, I thought, that Chris picked up. 14 bids, closed on the 29th. Here is another one that I thought was a pretty good deal. It only had one bidder. It closed at $285. This was a 79 back Han trench coat. It looks like a clear blister to me. It's hard to tell. It's hard to get these Han trench coats with a clear blister. If it isn't clear, it's very, very slight yellowing. But to me, it looks pretty clear to me, and it's in really nice condition overall. And this one was the Smile Factory, I believe. It's got the HG down there below the proof of purchase, which usually is a Smile Factory, if the factory codes, if my memory of factory codes are correct. But anyway, if this one's yellowed, it's very slight, and it sold for $285. I thought that was a great deal, whoever picked that one up. So there are still some deals out there. Now I've got some Droids figures, and I've got some Ewoks figures, And then we're going to dig into some really heavy hitters. So I hope you stick around towards the end here, because they closed yesterday, and I wanted to wait to make this video until those actually closed. But here is a Kenner Canada Droids Jord Doucette. It only sold at $127.50, and I think it's because it's got some damage there around the blister. We've seen a number of these Power of the Force and Ewoks and Droids figures that come with those coins where the blister kind of starts to bubble, and to the left of the coin, it looks like there's some weird stuff going on there. It's hard to tell, but it's got some very slight sticker residue where they try to remove the sticker there. Probably a 75 overall, but it sold for $127.50. I mean, that's a pretty great price, really, for a mint on card Jord Doucette. Another one that sold cheap, and again, it had some kind of weird kind of rippling going above the coin there, but this was another Kenner Canada Star Wars Droids Kia Mall, and fairly clear blister. It had maybe some very light yellowing to it, but I think given that damage to the blister, it probably drops it to like a 75-ish, maybe a 70 even. But yeah, very, very slight yellowing. It's very faint. But that one only sold for $192.50. So, I'm trying to show for you guys that, not every transaction I show on here needs to be like multi-$1,000 transactions or multi-$100 transaction. I do want to show a few budget items. These are pretty, unfortunately, these are probably considered budget items now, and they're awesome items. I mean, this is a foreign card back with a fairly clear blister, and it sold for $192.50. So, there are some deals to be had out there. Thal Jobin, this is an interesting one because his blaster is the black blaster that comes with Luke Stormtrooper. And so, unfortunately, what happens is a lot of these get bought, and then idiots open these up, take the blaster out, and then match it with the Luke Stormtrooper. And you'll see a lot of these open blisters, or it'll be like slightly opened, and the blaster will be gone, and people will be selling off the remnants. So it's a shame that people still do that, but they do it just to get that blaster. I mean, that blaster alone can sell for a lot of money. I mean, just big money. This one sold for $281, so it's a mint on card in pretty good shape. It had a little bit of curling going on in the bottom left corner, but the Kenner Canada Thal Jobin is a highly desirable one just because of that blaster. So honestly, that price is really not much more than what the blaster goes for by itself. So anyway, they're just an interesting kind of fact that a lot of unscrupulous collectors do buy Thal Jobin and open them up to get that blaster. Here's a Kenner Canada Uncle Gundy. This one sold for pretty big money, but it was in pretty good condition, unpunched. Kenner Canada, and not much wrong with this one other than the yellowing blister, which happens to pretty much all of them anyway. But it sold for, a number that reflects that. It sold for $370 plus $10 shipping. Big money for this one, Kez Eban, $416. The card looked pretty much flawless on this Kenner Canada card. Just some yellowing, of course, but an 80 plus, kind of 85 grade. It sold for $416 plus shipping. And then I also put together some Ewoks. This is the Kenner Canada King Gornish. Pretty decent condition. Again, some air pockets or rippling going on around the coin, but slight dents on the blister, but a very nice item. Again, a nice budget item, $161 plus shipping. And then we also had the Dulac Scout. That one was in a little bit better shape and pretty clear. It's probably some light yellowing going on. I don't know. It looks pretty clear to me. It's a pretty clear blister. I don't know how they'd score that, but it looks clear. Even the tray, the inner tray that holds the figure and the accessories in place was pretty clear there. So very nice. That sold for $203.50. So pretty good deal there on a Ewok Scout. The low gray, the Ewoks cartoon version of low gray always goes for pretty big money. And this one has some damage, so I think that kept the price down a little bit, but a nice clear looking blister to me. Probably like a 75-ish. It had some faint creases and sticker residue going on. Probably a 75 at best. But really nice one. $227.50. That's low, obviously, given the card creases and things like that. In near mint condition, that one can be easily triple that number. So that's a pretty good price for a 75 grade ish Ewoks cartoon low grade. One Power of the Force figure that was a nice, relatively budget item. It obviously had some pretty decent damage to it, but this was a Monoman Blister looked pretty good, but it did have some card damage to it. That one sold for $310. That's a pretty good number, just given where last 17 has been going lately. And I wanted to finish it off with a couple of pretty epic items. These just sold yesterday afternoon, so I was waiting to make this video. But these were 2 mint on card true Lili Ledys. You can see the El Regreso del Jedi. So you had the El Returnos, which were the earlier card backs. The El Regresos came out a little bit later, so they're not quite as expensive. But it's still, an expensive item. It had heavy wear, obviously, which, tends to be the case with a lot of these, just because, these were sold in the Mexican market. And, it's you don't have many survivors. You don't have many mint on card survivors. So I'm assuming that this one is legitimate. The seller had, 2,200 feedback, 2,200 items sold, 2,200 feedback with 100% positive rating. It was sold down in Mexico City. It was $68 shipping, and combined with the sales price, the winning sales price in my mind, in my opinion, assuming that this is legitimate, was very fair. It's $1,126. If that's truly a fully sealed Stormtrooper on that Mexican card bag, that was a fantastic deal. Fantastic deal. Me personally, I don't know if I'd risk it. I don't know if I'd risk it actually arriving from Mexico, because the Mexican post takes forever. It takes over a month usually, and it's very difficult to trust that this mint on card would be delivered safely. Me personally, I don't know if I could take that risk. But here was the other one. This was a full mint on card Wicket. It looked to be in a little bit better shape. Clear blister, obviously, and I mean the seal looks fine, but I don't know enough. You'd have to rely on an expert on the Ledys as to whether this was truly a mint on card or a very good reseal, but it looks legitimate to me. And that one sold for $23.80. So clearly the market agreed with me that it was legitimate. But what an awesome item! It's I say this a lot in my videos, so I know it's repetitive, but you very rarely see these extremely rare card backs. These foreign card backs come up at much less at all, but when they do, they're usually grossly overpriced with a buy it now situation. But for them to come up at auction, it's pretty awesome to see. But $23.80 was the sales price there. I think that's probably in line with market, just given some of the mint on cards that I see for sale on eBay, or excuse me, on Facebook, in the Facebook groups. That number seems legitimate and very fair to me. So anyway, if you're new to the channel, I try to do these market updates regularly. I don't know how much longer I'll be in town, but I'll keep pumping out videos while I can. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you again to all my Patreon supporters and to my existing subscribers for watching, and I'll be back soon.